Please now give rise to the motivation of bodhicitta, the thought, I by all means will establish all mother beings, limitless in number, as the vast reaches of space, at the level of perfect, complete enlightenment. To this end, I will listen to this profound teaching and put it into practice accordingly. Please also give rise to the secret mantra outlook of the Vidyadharas by recollecting the 5 perfections, and listen to the following teaching in this way. Since the teaching that we're looking at today pertains to the secret mantra, the Vajrayana, then it's very important that we keep in mind these 5 perfections, that we acknowledge the 5 perfections of place, time, retinue, teaching, and so on. If I were to explain these 5 perfections in detail, that would take up a lot of our time, and we don't have much time, so I won't explain them. But nevertheless, please keep them in mind. Please remember them and keep them in mind. So the text we're looking at today is a garland of views. Before we launch into the text itself, I will first of all give an overview of the main points, the crucial points of the text. Because if I don't do that, then it could be that you end up hearing a lot of detail during the teaching, but nevertheless, you end up without any real clarity or orientation about the main points of the teaching, the central points of the text. So, the focus of this teaching, a garland of views, and likewise the focus of the Guhyagarbha Tantra, is the inseparable truths of great purity and equality. What do we mean by the inseparable truths of purity and equality? Well, the inseparability of the relative truth of great purity and the ultimate truth of great equality. This is the ultimate consummate reality of all things, the ultimate nature of all things, and this is the ultimate realization, meaning the highest, most supreme and important thing for us to realize. And this is also the focus of our text from beginning to end. This is what the text is talking about, the inseparability of the truths of purity and equality. So, to reiterate, the inseparability of the truths of great purity and equality, this is describing the way things really are, the consummate ultimate nature of all things. So if that's how it is, if that is essentially how things are, well, what are the various positions and beliefs of the outsiders, meaning the non-Buddhists, and also the insiders, meaning the Buddhists? So the text will look into that, into all of the various views and beliefs of the non-Buddhists and Buddhists. Likewise, within the Buddha Dharma itself, we have 2 main vehicles, right? We have the lesser vehicle and the greater vehicle, or we could say the Hinayana and the Mahayana. So the text will also look into the various beliefs and positions held by those vehicles, those various Buddhist vehicles, right? Or we could say Buddhist approaches. And furthermore, the text will look at the various beliefs or views held in the Vajrayana, the teachings of secret mantra. In the Vajrayana, we have the pinnacle of all views, the view of Atta Yoga. And what exactly is that position? So, if we're not first of all aware of all of the other positions and standpoints of various followers, their various systems and vehicles, we won't actually be able to grasp the heart and significance of the view of the great perfection, right? This text is called a garland of views, and what this tells us is that within this text we will find a presentation of the various positions of the non-Buddhists, but also the Buddhists. So we will find a presentation of the views of all 9 vehicles of Buddha Dharma. And to begin with, we will find a presentation of the views held by non-Buddhists. They will then be compared to the views of Buddhists. And then we will go into more detail and look and compare the various Buddhist views. So first of all, we'll compare the views of the Shravakas, Practika Buddhas, and the Bodhisattvas, and we'll look at the difference between these 3 views that pertain to the vehicle of characteristics. Then we'll move on to look at the 4 classes of Tantra and their views, so the views of Kriya, Upa, Yoga, and Anuttara Yoga Tantra. We'll compare all of these views. We'll look into the hierarchy of these views. And when we're comparing these views, then there'll there'll be a lot of debate, a lot of back and forth, comparing one view with another, showing why one view is more valid than the other, why one view is incorrect, and so on and so forth. So all of this debate that we will see, that we'll go through, the debate does not concern appearances, right? We're not debating here over the issue of whether things appear or not, whether things occur or not. That goes, that is not being debated. We could say that's not where the difference stem from. It's not that some schools believe things don't appear and others believe they do appear. Everyone is in agreement that things do appear, things do occur. So what are we debating about then? Where does the difference between all of these views lie? Well, the difference lies in the way we believe appearances to exist. So everyone agrees, yes, things appear, things occur, but what is the nature of those things? How do they exist? In what way do they exist? This is where all the debate stems from. So do things really exist the way they appear or not? This is basically where the difference in opinion lies. So, for example, we have the vehicle of characteristics, right? From among the various vehicles of Buddha's teaching, we have the vehicle of characteristics. And the followers of this vehicle believe that the aggregates, elements, and sense fields, these fundamental phenomena, are truly established. To some extent, at least, they believe these phenomena are truly established. But then we move to a higher tenet system, like the tenet system or philosophy of the Madhyamakas. And these proponents do not believe that these fundamental phenomena, aggregates, elements, and sense fields actually exist the way they appear. So we see a development or a refinement of the view, right, of one's understanding, right? And then we move even higher to the views of Vajrayana, secret mantra. And there it's understood that not only do the fundamental phenomena of aggregates, elements, sense fields, and so on not exist the way they appear, not only do they lack reality, but they are actually pure in and of themselves. Right now, from the very beginning, originally, the 5 aggregates are pure as the 5 male Buddhas, the 5 elements are pure as the 5 female Buddhas, and so on. So in this way we can see, as we compare all of the views with one another, we can see that there is a hierarchy of views as we proceed through the vehicles. As we proceed from the lower vehicles up to the higher vehicles, we can see very clearly how the view becomes more and more refined. So, well, where does this refinement come from? Where does this difference stem from? Well, it stems from the extent to which one has realized the true nature of things, the extent to which reality has been correctly understood. So, those who have not understood reality at all are the outsiders, the non-Buddhists. And then we have the views of so we look at the views of the non-Buddhists, who we can say have not understood reality at all. And then we will look at the views of the Buddhists, the various Buddhist vehicles. And we'll see that there is a hierarchy of vehicles here. And this hierarchy rests on what? Well, it rests on the extent to which one has genuinely, correctly, and fully realized reality. So, for instance, even at the level of the vehicle of characteristics, there's a hierarchy, right? We can say the Bodhisattva view is superior to the Pratyeka Buddha view, the Pratyeka Buddha view is superior to the Shravakayana view, and so on. Why? Why can we say that there is this hierarchy? Well, we say it with reference to the degree to which those practitioners have realized reality. So, what is the crucial point we need to understand here as we begin to look at this profound text? Well, we need to understand the inseparable truths of purity and equality. We need to understand that the inseparable truth of purity and equality is ultimate reality, that is the consummate nature of all things. This is the pinnacle of realizations. This is reality, as it is. So this is a very important point to understand. We need to understand that and keep that in the forefront of our minds as we look at the text and, all the way through the text. Otherwise, if you don't keep this in mind, if you don't understand this crucial point, then you might find yourself thinking, well, why are all these views being mentioned. What's actually the purpose of this this survey of non-Buddhist and Buddhist views? What are we doing here? And you could end up feeling a bit disorientated and unclear on the purpose of this whole endeavor. And you might think, well, why are all these things being explained? Why do we have a presentation of non-Buddhist views and then the views of, say, Shravakas, Prachika Buddhas, and so on, the lower Buddhist tenet systems? Why are they being explained here? If this is the text on the Great Perfection, why aren't we just jumping into the view of the Great Perfection? Why aren't we just going straight into an explanation of the view of the inseparable truths of purity and equality? Well, the reason is that all of these different systems and their views are presented from bottom to top, one after the other, so that we can eventually arrive at an explanation and an understanding of the ultimate and pinnacle of all realizations, the pinnacle of all views, which is none other than the view of Ati Yoga, the Great Perfection. So the view of Ati Yoga, the Great Perfection, is the Ati Yoga, the Great Perfection, is the supreme of all tenet systems. It's the supreme of all approaches. It's incredibly important to understand this, and to understand that it's in order to gain an understanding of this approach of the Great Perfection and its view, and to understand its superiority, why and how it's superior. It's for that reason that we are being given a presentation of all these other views, from non-Buddhist views on up. So this was an introductory overview to the text. Please keep a general understanding of these crucial points in the forefront of your mind as we proceed through the text. This will help orient and contextualize your understanding of the text. In the past, in Tibet, there were many great scholars who have commentated on and taught the Guhya Garbha Tantra, and they adopted different approaches to teaching the Guhya Garbha Tantra, and we can speak of three main approaches in this way. So the first of these three is to explain the Tantra from the tip, just like sewing a needle. The second is to explain from the middle, like holding a spear, and the third is to explain from the root, like holding a sword. So when you sew using a needle, right? And you sew by putting the tip of the needle into the fabric, right? You put the tip in first. That's the process. Likewise, when you hold a spear, you hold the spear in the middle, not at the top or the bottom, but the middle. And when you hold a sword, well, you hold the sword from its handle, right? From the root or base of the sword. So likewise, we find these three different approaches when it comes to teaching the Guhya Garbha Tantra. What's meant by the first approach of teaching from the tip, like sewing with a needle? Well, this means to explain the Guhya Garbha Tantra by means of its title. So the extensive title, full title of the Guhya Garbha Tantra is we can translate it into English as the illusory emanation net, the secret essence, reality ascertained. So according to this first approach, all 22 chapters of the Guhya Garbha Tantra would be explained by means of the title, by breaking down the title and going through each syllable of the title. Then we have the second of these three approaches, the approach of teaching the Guhya Garbha Tantra from the middle, like holding a spear. So what do we mean by the middle here, the middle of the Guhya Garbha Tantra? Well, it refers to teaching the Guhya Garbha Tantra by means of three characteristics, the characteristics of the view. So the characteristics of the view, which is the characteristics of knowing the cause. Then second, the samadhi, the characteristic of engaging in the condition. And third, actualization, the characteristic of the result. So these three characteristics, view, samadhi, and actualization, we could say fruition. So following this approach, then all 22 chapters of the Guhya Garbha Tantra are explained by means of this framework of the three characteristics, namely the ground, path, and fruition, or we could say view, meditation, and fruition, or view, meditation, and conduct. Then we have the third approach, the approach of teaching from the root, like holding a sword. So this is the approach of teaching, we could say perhaps teaching from the base or from the foundation, teaching the whole Guhya Garbha Tantra, all 22 chapters, by means of the 4 visions that are taught in the 22nd chapter. And when we say 4 visions here, we could also say 4 types of experience. So first of all, the original basic experience or vision, which refers to the true nature, the original fundamental nature of things. Then secondly, we have the vision or the confused vision of ignorance, which refers to the confused experience of sentient beings. Then we have the vision or experience of those traversing the path, the experience of practitioners who are on the 5 paths and 10 bhumis. And finally, fourth and finally, we have the consummate vision of the fruition, the experience of perfectly enlightened ones. So this third approach then is to teach all 22 chapters of the Guhyagarbha Tantra by means of this framework of the 4 visions. So these are the 3 approaches then to teaching the Guhyagarbha Tantra. First of all, we have the approach of teaching from the tip, or teaching from the top, we could say perhaps in English, like sewing with a needle, the approach of teaching from the middle, like holding a spear, and the approach of teaching from the base, like holding a sword. So whichever approach one takes to teaching the Guhyagarbha Tantra, the content and subject matter is none other than the inseparable truths of great purity and equality, the inseparability of the relative truth of great purity and the ultimate truth of great equality. This is the subject matter of all 22 chapters of the Guhyagarbha Tantra, regardless of which manner in which they are explained. And again, the inseparable truths of purity and equality is none other than the true nature of things, the ultimate, consummate, true nature of things, in short, reality, just as it is. Okay, so now that I've given an overview of these important points, we'll move on to look at the actual text itself. So, as I said, please keep in mind these important points. These important points that I've mentioned, keep them in the forefront of your mind as we go through the text. So the text opens with a line of homage. Namo Guru Padma Manjushriye. So, what does this mean? Well, Namo means homage or I prostrate, Guru means Lama, teacher, Padma means lotus, and is referring to the lotus-born Guru Rinpoche. Manjushri means Manjushri, and Ye means to. So I prostrate to the lotus Guru Manjushri. Who is paying homage here? Well, it is Mipham Rinpoche. Who is he paying homage to? He's paying homage to Guru Rinpoche, who is inseparable with Manjushri. So, first of all, we have this line of homage, and then we have a verse of homage that begins, Glorious Buddha, lotus-born, you who hold the treasure of omniscient wisdom, exponent of the various different vehicles, O yin knower of the 3 times, care for me. So, glorious here refers to the glory of possessing, glory here refers to possessing the glory of having attained the Dhammakaya for one's own benefit, and the glory of having attained the form kaya for the benefit of others. Buddha refers to the perfectly awakened one. In Tibetan, the word Buddha is Sangye, a word comprised of 2 syllables. Sang means purified, and Gye means perfected. So Buddha, therefore, is one who has purified all afflictions and perfected wisdom. Buddha is we could say, a state of purified perfection. So in short, the glorious Buddha, the lotus-born, so the perfectly purified one, endowed with the glory of the 2 kayas that fulfill the benefit of self and other. The glorious Buddha is the lotus-born Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava. He is so named because he was born from a lotus. We could also say he is called lotus-born because he was born from the lotus family. He was born from Lord Buddha Amitabha, who is Lord and Sovereign of the Lotus Buddha family in the Western direction. So, or better we say, the Lotus family from among the 5 Buddha families. So because Guru Rinpoche belongs to the Lotus family in the West, then he is called the Lotus-born. You, lotus-born, hold the treasure of omniscient wisdom. So omniscient means to know everything, all objects of knowledge without exception. There's so much to say, so that's what omniscient means. And then we have the word wisdom, or in Sanskrit, jnana. There's so much to say about this word. We could talk about the wisdom of the ground, of the path, of the result, and so on. many different types or aspects of wisdom, primordial wisdom. Wisdom means knowledge, it means awareness. And you, Guru Rinpoche, you hold this treasure of omniscient awareness. You're like a storehouse or a treasury of wisdom. You're the exponent of the various different vehicles. So vehicles essentially means paths, approaches. You teach many different types of vehicles, many different paths like the 9 vehicles and so on. And the gathering of the intention of the... There's a scripture called Gathering of the Intention of the Sutras, Dodupa. And in this scripture it said, this vehicle is like space, like a celestial mansion. It is the supreme vehicle. It brings one happiness and bliss. All sentient beings who ride in this vehicle will transcend sorrow and attain enlightenment. So often we speak of 2 types of vehicle, causal vehicle and resultant or fruitional vehicle. And these are described as, we could say the causal vehicle is that which leads us to liberation. On the other hand, the resultant vehicle is that which shows us that liberation is right here. So these 2 types of vehicle, 2 types of path. And again, in short, vehicle means path. It means an approach. You, Guru Rinpoche, teach all of these. You're an exponent of all of these various vehicles in the sense that you teach all of them again and again. Ugyen, so here Guru Rinpoche is being referred to as Ugyen. In Sanskrit we could say Uddiyana. It is the name of a place. Generally it is the name of a place, but here it's being used to refer to Guru Rinpoche. So here Ugyen refers to a person, Guru Rinpoche, because of his connection with that place. You, Ugyen, were a knower or are a knower of the 3 times of past, present and future. You have perfect knowledge and realization of everything occurring throughout past, present and future. Please care for me until I attain perfect, complete enlightenment. Protect me, care for me, guard me, and guide me. So with this we've covered the opening homage. Now the text continues. Here is an explanation of the Pith Instruction, a Garland of Views, a treatise indisputably ascribed to the great master Padmasambhava. It comprises 3 sections, an introduction, the main body of the text, and a conclusion. The first of these is divided into an explanation of the title and an expression of veneration. So this is quite straightforward. It's simply saying that this text that we're looking at is made up of 3 parts, an introduction, in which the meaning of the title is explained. Secondly, the main body of the text, the main subject matter, and thirdly, the conclusion, which is like the closing of text saying, okay, now we're done. So we begin with first the introduction, which is divided into an explanation of the title and an expression of veneration, these 2. So first of all, the introduction, and so we'll begin with the introduction, of course, and the first part of it, which is an explanation of the title. In the Guyagaba Tantra, which is the glory of all the tantras and explanatory teachings that show how all phenomena are from the very beginning, spontaneously present as the great perfection, we read, no understanding, wrong understanding, partial understanding, non-understanding of the ultimate true nature. Discipline, mind, secret, and natural secret. The meanings of these are present in the Vajra mind of the teacher, who perfectly demonstrates them by means of phrases that depend on the assemblage of names designated by language, drawing out the meaning hidden within. So, when it says here, the Guyagaba Tantra, the glory of all tantras and teachings that show how all phenomena are from the beginning spontaneously present is the great perfection. Well, this opening sentence is identifying the source and origin of this teaching. And it's really important that we keep this in mind, that we keep in mind the fact that this text is focused on, it is concerned with exactly this, the meaning of the great perfection. So, equally we could say the inseparable truths of great purity and equality, the consummate nature of all things, which is none other than the state of the great perfection. This is what this text is focused on. This is what this text is all about. We need to really understand this and keep this in mind. If we lose track of this, then it'll be a bit like churning water in order to get butter. No matter how much you churn water, you're not going to get butter, right? So if we forget this crucial point, we could go through the text cover a lot of detail, but we'll end up just disorientated and not really clear about the purpose and intent of the text. I've said this already many times, I know, but I'm saying it again, just to emphasize the importance of keeping this at the forefront of our minds as we go through the text. This first sentence, this sentence we just read, declares the focus and heart of this text, right? The fact that all phenomena are from the very beginning spontaneously present as the great perfection. So, the consummate nature, the inseparable truths of great purity and equality, this is what the text is interested in. So, all the tantras and explanatory teachings show how all phenomena are... Sorry, I'll just backtrack. The commentary reads, the Guyagabha Tantra is the glory of all the tantras and explanatory teachings that show how all phenomena are from the very beginning spontaneously present as the great perfection. So, what does the great perfection mean? Well, it means that they are spontaneously present, naturally present, or that they naturally are the inseparable truths of great purity and equality. And then we have a few lines of the root text, meaning the Guyagabha Tantra itself, no understanding, wrong understanding, and so on. Each word of this quote holds so much meaning. We will not go through this quote line by line. We don't have enough time to do that. In any case, the meaning of these lines will be explained further on in the text. The text continues, consistent with the intellects of different kinds of individuals, there are various mundane and supramundane philosophical views. 2 for those who have no understanding, the ordinary unreflective and the materialists. 2 for those who understand wrongly, non-Buddhist extremists who are either nihilistic or eternalistic. 2 for those who only partly understand, listeners and solitary realizers. The view of those who have not realized the ultimately true nature, namely bodhisattvas who follow the way of the transcendent perfections. The view associated with the discipline of Kriya Tantra. The view associated with the wisdom mind in Yoga Tantra. 2 views associated with the secret methods of the generation and perfection phases in the inner mantra vehicle of the Great Yoga, and the view associated with the method of the natural secret Great Perfection. All of these views will be explained in more detail in the coming pages in the main body of the text, but let's just take a brief introductory look at them here. So we begin with the ordinary, unreflective, and materialists. These are both non-Buddhist schools, or we could also say outsider schools, the terms being synonymous. So these are described as the views of those with no understanding. They have no understanding whatsoever about the inseparable truths of great purity and inequality. So again, when we say no understanding and so on here, understanding of what? Understanding of the inseparable truths of great purity and equality, right? So these, the followers of these non-Buddhist schools, the ordinary unreflective and the materialists, let's just say the followers of these schools, the ordinary unreflective and the materialists, they have no understanding of this. They have no idea about the view of boundless purity, absolutely no idea. So the ordinary unreflective refers to those people who have engaged in no formal study or reflection on the nature of things, none whatsoever. They have no notion, no thought about the nature of reality. They haven't even given a thought to the questions of karma, cause and effect, past and future lives, the ultimate nature of things, and so on. They're just in a completely ignorant state, like in a dense darkness of ignorance. These are the ordinary, unreflective people. Then we have the materialists, and we could translate the materialists as the Charvakas, which is the Sanskrit name for a school of materialists. In Tibetan, we call them the Yangpemba. But just a note on the classifications, they are also classified as non-Buddhist extremists. Anyway, all of these details will be explained more in the main body of the text. In short, the materialists refer to those who have engaged in some study and reflection, but they deny past and future lives. They also deny karmic cause and effect. Okay, so that covers those who have no understanding. Now the two who understand wrongly, non-Buddhist extremists who are either nihilistic or eternalistic. So these two parties of non-Buddhists, they also do not understand the true nature. They understand things wrongly. Alright, we won't say much more about these now. I'll just wait until we get to the main body of the text. Next on our list is the two who only partly understand, the listeners and solitary realizers, or we could say Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. So, these practitioners have understood a fraction or a slither of the true nature, the inseparable truths of great purity and equality, for they understand that all phenomena lack reality. They understand that all things are just like an illusion. They lack establishment. They arise merely through the coming together of causes and conditions, and as a result, the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas have partly understood a tiny fraction of the true nature of things, the inseparable truths of great purity and equality. Okay, next on the list, the view of those who have not realized the ultimately true nature, namely bodhisattvas who follow the way of the transcendent perfections. So the bodhisattvas, they have realized the true nature of things to some extent, but they have not realized it perfectly. They have not realized it in the best possible way, or we could say they haven't realized it completely. What they have realized is that all phenomena are emptiness, all things are emptiness. They are just like dreams and illusions. However, they have not realized that all phenomena are the inseparable truths of great purity and equality. They have not realized this. In contrast, what they understand, what they believe is that in the future, phenomena can and will become the inseparability of purity and equality. But they have failed to understand that all phenomena actually are already, in and of themselves, naturally, primordially, great purity and equality. So the Bodhisattva practitioners at this level do not understand that the aggregates, say the 5 aggregates, are originally the nature of the 5 Buddhas, that the 5 elements are from the very beginning, the 5 female Buddhas, and so on. Next on the list, the view associated with the discipline of Kriya Tantra. So this is one of the outer tantras, right? And the view associated with the the view associated with the discipline of Kriya Tantra. So this is the first of the 3 outer tantras, and then next on the list we have the view associated with the wisdom mind or realization of Yoga Tantra. And then we have the 2 views associated with the secret methods of the generation and perfection phases in the inner mantra vehicle of the great yoga. So both Kriya Tantra and Yoga Tantra, outer tantras, we could also mention the what's often called the non-dual Tantra, which is a level of Tantra that combines the discipline or conduct rather of Kriya Tantra with the view of Yoga Tantra. So we have these 3 levels of outer Tantra, and then, as it says here, the 2 views associated with the inner mantra vehicle of the great yoga. This is referring now to the inner secret tantras, the inner Buddhist tantras. And we mentioned before that we can make a 3-fold division of the inner tantras: Mahayoga, Anu Yoga, and Ati Yoga. So Mahayoga pertains to the generation stage, and Anu Yoga pertains to the perfection stage. And then, as it says, the view associated with the method of the natural secret, the great perfection. Well, this is Ati Yoga proper. So the last two items on this list are referring to the 3 inner tantras. And as I said, these will all be explained in much more detail below. This was just a very brief introduction. In particular, there are the 3 vehicles of characteristics: listener, solitary realizer, and bodhisattva, the 3 outer mantra vehicles, Kriya, Upa, and Yoga, and the 3 inner mantra vehicles, generation, perfection, and great perfection, together making 9 successive vehicles that are the paths to perfect liberation. In order to ensure that the king and 25 disciples and others with fortunate karma would not forget these distinctions, the Guru himself composed this short text as a memory aid, briefly describing all the particular features of these views and their respective results, and giving it a title that befits its contents. But before we look at that, let's just jump back to the middle of page 32, the line that reads, consistent with the intellects of different kinds of individuals, there are various mundane and supramundane philosophical views. So this line in the Tibetan actually comes later. So what this means is that there are various mundane and supramundane views. So mundane views refers to the non-Buddhist views. They are mundane in the sense that they remain within the confines of the world. The supramundane philosophical views are the Buddhist views. These are views that go beyond the world, that are transcendental, that can lead us beyond the confines of the world. Okay, so now back to page 33. In particular, the three vehicles of characteristics and so on. So these are the vehicle of the Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Or we could say in English, the listeners and solitary realizers and Bodhisattva. By following these paths, one can indeed attain perfect enlightenment by gathering the accumulations and purifying obscurations over the course of 3 or 7 and so on countless eons. Perfect enlightenment can indeed be attained through these vehicles, through these paths. Then we have the 3 outer mantra vehicles. So when it comes to mantra, to the Vajrayana, we have outer mantra, or we could say outer tantra, and then inner mantra or tantra. Again, the 3 outer mantra vehicles are those of Kriya, Upa, and Yoga. And then we have the 3 inner mantra vehicles of generation, perfection, and the great perfection. Or equally, we could say Maha, Anu, and Ati. So these are all paths, right? These are all vehicles or paths, and they are all paths to what? To perfect liberation. The first 3 of the 9 Buddhist vehicles are described as the vehicles of characteristics. Well, why? Because all of these approaches, the approaches of the listeners, solitary realizers, and bodhisattvas, they believe that samsara is the product of a certain set of causes and conditions, and nirvana too is the product of a certain set of causes and conditions. So they believe that enlightenment is the product of causes and conditions. And the practitioners at this level believe that these various causes and conditions have some kind of existence, some kind of establishment or substantial characteristics. So, they are, just trying to think of a good translation in English. Let's say they have a degree of substantial existence, or they are understood to have a degree of substantial existence at this level, and that is why these vehicles are called vehicles of characteristics. Because at this level, the cause and result of causes and conditions leading to samsara and to nirvana, enlightenment, are understood to possess characteristics that are established to some extent. So then we have the vehicles of secret mantra, or the Vajrayana, and these are called the resultant vehicle. Why are they called the resultant vehicle? Well, because on these paths one takes the spontaneously present enlightened state just as it is onto the path, or as the path, and it is this enlightened state that one trains in, the spontaneously present state of enlightenment. It was in order to ensure that the king and 25 disciples and so on would not forget these crucial points that the Guru composed this short text, the Garland of Views, as a memory aid. So here it is, the subject matter of the Garland of Views is highlighted. It's highlighted here, right? When it says, the Guru himself composed this short text, briefly describing all the particular features of these views and their respective results. And again, what is the purpose of describing all of these views and their respective results? Well, it is to clarify and highlight or emphasize the ultimate result and the ultimate view, that is the inseparable truths of great purity and equality. So that is the focus of this text. And sorry, to backtrack, I forgot one point. We spoke about the vehicle of characteristics, right? So the listener, solitary, realizer, and bodhisattva vehicles are described as the vehicle of characteristics, and we spoke about why they are given that name. the vehicles of characteristics are also called the causal vehicles, right? And in contrast, the various vehicles of secret mantra are called the resultant vehicles, the reason for which we explained. So in short, what does this text, Garland of Views, teach us? What does it explain? Well, it explains the ultimate consummate of all views, the inseparable truths of great purity and equality. It explains the ultimate final nature of all things. And in order to do so, the text explains the distinctions between the various views that have just been laid out, right? So to that very end, then the text also explains to us the various views of non-Buddhists and Buddhists, the differences between them. So we begin by looking at the non-Buddhist views, and then the Buddhist views and the difference between those, and then we move on to look at the various Buddhist views. Okay, what is the difference between the various views of the vehicle of characteristics? We have the view of the Shravakas, the Pratiga Buddhas, and the Bodhisattvas, right? So we will compare and differentiate between those. Then we'll move on to the three outer tantras of Kriya, Upa, and Yoga. So what are the differences between these views, these three views? And then we'll move on to the three inner tantras of Maha, Anu, and Ati. What are the distinctions, the differences between these three views? And then we will culminate by looking at the ultimate consummate view, the view of the inseparable truths of great purity and equality. So the inseparable truths of great purity and equality is the consummate ultimate view, yes. But in addition to looking at that, we will also look at all of the other views, the lower or lesser views. We could say that by means of looking at the lower and lesser views, we will look at the consummate view of the inseparable truths of great purity and equality. So through comparison, through distinction, through contrast. Furthermore, it is as a result of the differences in views that we find differences in meditation, conduct, and fruition. For the view is like one's eyes, right? One's eyesight. The view, we could say the view is basically one's eyes, one's vision. So in this way, it is from the view that the conduct comes. It's from the view that meditation comes. It's from the view that the fruition comes. All of these, meditation, conduct, and fruition, stem from the view. In order to ensure that the king and the 25 disciples and others would not forget these important distinctions, Guru Rinpoche, when he was leaving Tibet, when he was departing from Tibet, then he composed this very short text, this very succinct text, as a memory aid and gave it to his disciples. A memory aid basically means a set of notes. So to go back to the view, how the view is like eyes, and how from the view stems the meditation, from one's meditation stems one's conduct, and from all three, view, meditation, and conduct, stem the fruition, and so on. This is to say that all of these, view, meditation, conduct, and fruition, are interrelated, and it is the view that sets the direction for all of them. This is also why, and again, when we look at the various vehicles and different traditions and so on, we find different types of meditation, conduct, and also different types of fruition. All of these differences stem from the differences in the view. So, the view is really the source of all of these other aspects. And it's precisely for that reason that we are beginning by looking at the views of these various vehicles and distinguishing their differences. As it says here, briefly describing all the particular features of these views and their respective results. Okay, so now we've covered an explanation of the title. Now we'll move on to an expression of veneration, or we could say opening homage. So remember that we, in a sense, have two titles and two opening homages here, right? So we already covered the title of Mipham Rinpoche's commentary and Mipham Rinpoche's opening homage, right? And now Mipham Rinpoche is explaining to us the title of Guru Rinpoche's text, right? A Garland of Views. And that's what we've just covered. And now we're moving on to the opening homage or expression of veneration that we find in Guru Rinpoche's text, and this is what Mipham Rinpoche is now going to explain to us. So I pay homage to the Lord Manjushri, the youthful, and to Vajradhamma. So this is Guru Rinpoche's own homage, right? Homage is being paid to the deity of wisdom according to the causal vehicle of characteristics. So the deity of wisdom, namely Lord Manjushri. So the commentary reads, homage is paid to the deity of wisdom according to the causal vehicle of characteristics, namely to him who has destroyed the two kinds of obscurations, together with their habitual tendencies, who possesses the 6 qualities of excellence, qualities of the transcendent perfections, both as cause and result, and who has therefore gone beyond the extremes of existence and peace. He takes the form of the youthful Bodhisattva Manjushri, who is gentle because his mind, the ultimate nature, is unafflicted by mental elaboration, and who is glorious because he has achieved the twofold goal. Homage is also paid to Vajradhamma. So, in accordance with the resultant vehicle of secret mantra, homage is also paid to the Yidam deity, the Lord of Secrets, Vajradhamma, adamantine Dharma. His name refers to the indestructible or adamantine nature of things, namely their emptiness, unaffected by attributes or concepts, and to his manifesting as unobstructed compassion, or as the personification of the Dharma, the Buddha's teachings. In short, who is paying homage here? Guru Rinpoche is paying homage. To whom is he paying homage? Well, from the perspective of the causal vehicle of characteristics, he's paying homage to Lord Manjushri, and from the perspective of the tantric vehicles, he's paying homage to Vajradhamma. Okay, so now we've concluded the introduction and we move on to the main body of the text. So this is the heart of the text, the main body and heart of the text. And this is divided into, the actual text is divided into explanations of A, the different views, and B, the different kinds of yogic disciplines. Well, what we mean by yogic disciplines is the different types of conduct. The first of these explanations is further divided into non-Buddhist and Buddhist views, each of which consists of a brief outline and a detailed explanation. So we begin with an explanation of the different views. First of all, an explanation of the various non-Buddhist views, and we begin this explanation with a brief introduction. So, just a few pages ago, we were given a brief introduction, a kind of list of the various views, right? Non-Buddhist and Buddhist. So that was an introduction by Mipham Rinpoche, right? So from this point onwards, the text is commentating on Guru Rinpoche's own words, right? The words we find in Guru Rinpoche's text, A Garland of Views. So now we have an explanation of Guru Rinpoche's brief introduction. So, the root text from the Garland of Views begins, the false views entertained by beings in the world are without number, and so on. And the commentary reads, the outer universe, the sphere of disintegration, the world composed of perishable things, is inhabited by sentient beings who are imputed merely on that which the mind fails to discern as the continua of the 5 aggregates. These people are immersed in ignorance. So the outer universe is described as the sphere of disintegration, a world composed of perishable things. This describes the fact that everything that makes up the world, the external environment, and also the beings that inhabit it, are by their nature impermanent. They disintegrate. They will be destroyed. Moment by moment, they are disintegrating. Sentient beings. So this world, this perishable world, is inhabited by sentient beings who are imputed merely on that which the mind fails to discern as the continua of the 5 aggregates. So what is meant by this? Well, we impute this notion of a person, a self. For instance, I think I am Pemariksal, or I'm so-and-so, right? And I think that with reference to my 5 aggregates, we impute self, we impute the person, whether it be our own self or the self of another, with reference to the 5 aggregates. What we're doing here is simply applying a label, just imputing a self, the notion of a self, onto the continuity of the 5 aggregates. Because if we actually examine the 5 aggregates from top to bottom, we will not be able to find anything that is in fact Pemariksal or Sonam Punsok or whoever. We cannot find the person in the aggregates when we examine. So as it says here, the mind fails to discern. The mind fails to discern, fails to understand. It fails to understand or examine the state of affairs, and so beings blindly impute a self onto the continuity of the five aggregates. This is how the world comes together. These people refers to all sentient beings. In the scriptures we find various terms like people, sentient being, self, individual, but they all basically hold the same meaning. They're all referring to living creatures, to beings. If we examine and analyze, we cannot actually find any person, any sentient being, any self. All of these things are mere imputations. They lack reality. They're not established in any way. It is without discernment and examination, without understanding, that we impute these things, the notion of a self, onto phenomena. Or better to say, the self is a mere imputation. As such, these people, these beings, are immersed in ignorance. Ignorance, this confusion, this lack of awareness, is something that pervades their entire state of being. It's something that pervades all of the afflictions. Just like salt dissolved into water. Once salt is dissolved into water, the salt pervades water everywhere, right? The whole body of water. So likewise, this state of ignorance pervades the state of all sentient beings, just like Aryadeva says in his 400 verses on the middle way. As the tactile sense pervades the body, confusion is present in them all. By overcoming confusion, one will also overcome all disturbing attitudes. So this is to say that this ignorance is a state that pervades all of the afflictions. It pervades one's entire state of being. Of course, there are other contexts in which we distinguish ignorance, where we understand ignorance as a specific affliction distinct from, say, attachment, aversion, jealousy, pride, and so on. But from another angle, in another context, we can say that ignorance is an all-pervasive affliction. Ignorance is a state that pervades all of the other afflictions. So, all beings stray from the truth. They are confused and mistaken. Thus, they are immersed in ignorance. So, we'll continue with the commentary now. They stray from the truth, and through their mistaken understanding and various distorted beliefs, they exhibit innumerable views, for there is no limit to false understanding. So, mistaken understanding here refers to the views of the non-Buddhists and their various distorted beliefs. We could also say this refers to the views of the Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and so on. In any case, beings exhibit innumerable views. There is no limit to false understanding. Nevertheless, all of these views can be summarized as being of four kinds. The Tibetan word for kind, number, has several different meanings: cause, particularity, similarity, appearance, number, and condition. Here it should be understood in the numerical sense. So these four are the views of the unreflective, and so on. So reading through the following text. These four are the views of the unreflective, who have no philosophy of life or spiritual practice and are destitute of any kind of deeper purpose. Secondly, the materialist, whose name in Tibetan, pronounced Gyang Pempa, has different meanings depending on how it's spelled, either Gyang Pempa, literally rejectionalists, because in their thoughts and behavior materialists lay aside any concern for future existences, rejecting them as far away, or Gyang Pempa, literally seekers of obvious benefit, because they act only for what is obviously beneficial for this present life and have no greater aim. Thirdly, we have the nihilistic extremists, and fourthly, the eternalistic extremists, called Mutekpa in Tibetan, because they are said to stay on the steps, Tek, leading down to the edge, Mu, of the river, that is, the path flowing into the ocean of nirvana. The term materialist, when it is not being used specifically, may denote any non-Buddhist outside the Dharma, as is the case in the Parinirvana Sutra, where there is a debate between Lord Buddha's point of view and that of the materialists. But here, in the context of a description of the four kinds of views, the general word has a specific usage and is employed in a particular way for the view mentioned in this text. Moreover, the term does not refer here to those with wrong understanding, the materialists who were the followers of Braspati and hold nihilistic views, like the nihilistic extremists. It refers rather to those without any understanding. So what we're looking at here are the views of the unreflective and the materialists. We already spoke briefly about these two non-Buddhist schools. The unreflective refers to those who engage in no reflection whatsoever. They have no philosophy of life, no spiritual practice. They have no notion of past and future lives. They haven't even given it a thought. They're completely destitute of any kind of deeper purpose, and so they engage in no reflection. They ask no questions. They have no notion of life after death, and so on. They're completely, as it says here, void of reflection and questioning. And there are indeed some people like this in the world who are as simple-minded, as dull-minded as animals. So those are the unreflective. And then we have the materialist, who, as the commentary says, lay aside any concern for future existences, rejecting them as far away. They care only for what is obviously beneficial in this present life and have no greater aim. So they give no consideration, no thought whatsoever to life after death, to past and future lives. They're focused solely on what is going to benefit them right here and now in this life. They give no thought whatsoever to what happens after death, what might happen in future lives. So these are the non-Buddhist schools of the unreflective and the material. And as I said, we did speak very briefly about these a little earlier this session. And they've been mentioned again here, and they will actually be discussed in further detail below. So obviously these are important points, and that's why they're being repeated. Those who belong to these two schools have no understanding. So we spoke earlier of no understanding, wrong understanding, and so on. So the unreflective and the materialists, these are people with no understanding of reality, right? No understanding of the true nature of things whatsoever. When it comes to the materialists, we can identify two types of materialist. So, as the commentary reads, two slightly different types of materialists depending on the spelling of the Tibetan word. So, the first spelling we could translate literally as rejectionless, because in their thoughts and behavior they lay aside any concern for future existences. So this is one type of materialist, right? They give no thought, no consideration whatsoever to what is going to happen after death. And then there are the materialists, literally seekers of no obvious benefit, who act only for what is obviously beneficial, obviously and directly beneficial in this, we could say materially beneficial in this present life. They focus on business and politics, making money and so on and so forth, so they can experience, let's say, material pleasure, gross pleasure in this present life, and they have no greater aim than that.